Can you hear me okay and everything?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. All right, so yeah, so basically, wanted to kind of take you. I know now. Have you been doing short-term rentals in Pennsylvania or outside of?
The short term, um, we've been in Kentucky and Tennessee.
Okay, all right. So Pennsylvania, and are you doing long? Is Pennsylvania your target for long term or other states?
Um, for the long term, yeah, and multi units because I just moved to Pennsylvania this past January. Originally, I'm from Kentucky, so
Okay,
I just moved up here. Obviously, like it does not seem like short term does here, so that's kind of why I've redirected to like long term and multi units while I'm up here.
okay, yeah, yeah, and that makes perfect sense. And I'm pulling up a couple screens to walk through with you as well. Um, so basically, so obviously, long term rentals work very similarly. Um, sorry, just typing at the same time I'm talking is probably not a great plan. Um, Long-term rentals work fairly similarly across the country, although obviously state laws vary quite a bit. Pennsylvania, I grew up in Boston. My mom was a landlord of about, I think we had like 25 or something units. It was one bigger building. I was really young, so I forget exactly the details. And I am just watching my phone because Home Depot is supposed to send me a message to pay for one of my things, one of my contractors. Anyway, so Pennsylvania is fairly balanced in landlord tenant law. And when I look to a market to invest in, and I'll be honest, I'm pretty much all in, almost totally all in northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre market of Pennsylvania, which is basically where 84 and 81 meet, upper right corner of the state. Um, and the reason I'm all in Pennsylvania is because of the relatively balanced landlord tenant laws. We are a state where virtually everything is a protected class. So when you come to federal discrimination laws versus state, pretty much if it walks, it's a protected class in Pennsylvania. So that's what it is, and that really doesn't change your tenant pool. Why I like Pennsylvania's landlord tenant laws is because in 33 or 38 calendar days, I forget, they're just changing it now, from filing with the courthouse to constable at the door showing up to lock them out and bye bye forever is a very quick process. When in Massachusetts, and this is back in 1970 something, it took my mom 18 months to get one of our few bad tenants out. Some states are quicker, some states are slower, but I find Pennsylvania to be pretty efficient. The anomalies in Pennsylvania, if you have been working in other states, and I don't specifically know Kentucky or anything out that way, but there is, I don't want to say there's no state law, but there is, it's very town to town. For example, what codes are followed is not determined on a state law level. It's determined on a town by town level. Scranton follows slightly different codes than Wilkes-Barre. They're 15 miles apart. What Who can pull permits, who can do work, it all changes town to town. Like Wilkes-Barre and Hanover Township. Wilkes-Barre is the, well, third class city, tiny city, barely a city. And Hanover Township is formerly a neighborhood of Wilkes-Barre. Now it's its own, 100 years ago became its own township, I think, or borough. I forget which one it is. Um, Wilkes-Barre City, you have to be a licensed, filled out, pass the city exam contractor to pull permits. Hanover Township, anyone can pull the permit who has either ownership of the building or an HIC code, which is a state registration thing. So, like, those laws are very town to town based. Very important to know how your town works, and I keep saying town. There's only one town in Pennsylvania. The rest of our townships are boroughs, but whatever. The other reason I like Pennsylvania, and obviously major cities are always the anomaly to this, is really high cash flow returns. My properties make um, pretty strong. I mean, I'm getting 10, 12, 14, 16% return. If you're in a more major market with a higher like appreciation value, like a Philadelphia, you're not going to get double digits. But these are the reasons I like Pennsylvania. So let me kind of take you through a little bit, and you tell me if you, I mean, you've been doing this game for a while, so you tell me if there's another question that I should start with, but I normally start with 10. And I use for this, oh, you know what, I realized it doesn't automatically switch over, so let me add this to the screen. Share screen and Jovi DSCR debt service worksheet. Yes, that one. Okay. All right, so this is, and Joe V is Joe Scarice. He's a very well-known hard money, hard to normal money. Joe has a few different programs, but most of his money is asset-based lending. Asset-based lending is basically, they look a little bit at your credit, they look a little bit at you personally, but they're really looking at the property. Joe will pretty much approve a deal based on this spreadsheet and a few other questions. So these are some of the basic questions, and I'll go through in more detail, but basically property value, loan amount, loan to value, interest rate. Here's your gross rent, and I'm basing it on, in this property, $2,300 a month, $1,150 a month times 2. This is a double. And you fill out a sheet like this, and I'll take you through this. I'm taking things at top level in our first meeting to kind of walk you through it. Here's your incomes. Here's your expenses. Now, very important, these are a few things that I do differently than other people. You'll see over here, minimum actual percentage or 5% as a vacancy. I do 10. I do more than 10 for management, and I do another 10 for maintenance, repairs and maintenance. So I hit it at 30 to 35%. If a deal can't deliver my returns at 30 to 35%, I am very unlikely to be buying it. Most investors, I bought one double in the last 5 years because of that, because everything's been too overpriced for me. I know other investors who picked up a lot of properties over the last 5 years, and they're very happy with them. And they pretty much have either little or no, what I call MVM pad, maintenance vacancy management. But I hit them real hard. And so I ended up at the bottom of this, cash flow after debt service 2470 rather, which is a 1.22 debt service coverage ratio. Barely acceptable. 1.2 is acceptable. Debt service coverage ratio is how much bigger is your net operating income than your mortgage. And taxes and everything are outside of that. If it's below 1.2, the lender's probably not going to cut it. So everything to me is a spreadsheet. Everything to me is very often DSCR. The other one, there we go. Oh. Okay, so let me switch over to, and this one I almost always do live. This is the other way to do the numbers. And back to Joe's, before I leave it, back to Joe's rental spreadsheet. There is, when I'm looking at Joe's rent, when I'm looking at DSCR, I am always focused on not just the coverage, but am I comfortable? So the banks all say, for those that use DSCR as their criteria, which is many of them, they all say 1.2 is fine. I'm only good with 1.2 if I've got lots of other pads sitting there, because I'm saying, wait a second, if I'm only 20% over my total cost, why am I doing it? I focus very hard on the logic of, I don't want to put anything in my boat that doesn't make my boat float better. So I would rather, and this is why I've not bought anything in 5 years, and I'd rather buy nothing than buy something that's marginal. If you're in a situation where you've got excess cash flow, where you've got extra cash, where, you know what, I don't care about DSCR, or rather I don't care about maintenance vacancy management because whatever, like my parents, when they bought their building in 1974, best in the world you could get was a 17% interest rate. And my mom admitted to me that building didn't make them a dime. They put money into it until about 1990. It was effectively a tax shelter for them. And frankly, I'm not in a situation to have a tax shelter for 20 years, and I'm not sure I would. So my thing is all about the numbers. Now, what you will find in this region of Pennsylvania, up here especially, is very often your income valuation and your comp valuation are not the same. Your comparable sales. I look at ARV, and we will cover ARV. I look at comparable sales, and we'll cover that. But to me, if a rental, how do I put this? If a rental makes sense on ARV, makes sense on value equity, but doesn't put money in my pocket every month because its rent barely covers its mortgage. Personally, in my life situation, it's not a fit, because my life situation is I'm trying to build a passive cash flow. I'm not trying to build a pile of equity. My parents were in a different situation. They weren't worried about cash flow. They were worried about equity. So so simpler than Joe's sheet is, I've got too many tabs open. Sorry, give me a second. Simpler than Joe's sheet is the basic rental sheet, and I'll do this one for you live, because a lot of times it's easier to see it built. That way, you start to see how it can be thought through. And I'm going to switch to this tab instead. So rent, and I'll call it rent, but we'll say it really means total income. So rent, tax, insurance, other, which is whatever else the landlord pays. And I call this AGI. Then I have MVM, maintenance vacancy management, and then I have NOI. So let me clean this screen up a little bit here. So basically, if my rent is $2,300, this is for a 2-unit. Philadelphia, 2,300 is probably not a 1-unit, but whatever. Up here, it's a 2-unit. My taxes, so this is monthly, annual, and this is another calculation. I always leave a third category. So 2,300 times 12. My taxes are 2,500. My insurance is 1,600. My other is, let's say, another 2,000. That would be my lawn care. If I don't make my tenants do it, that would be my snow removal. That would be my city inspections. That would be my pure sewer is a separate charge, whatever. So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, that minus that minus that minus this. Now I'm going to add a couple spacing rows here, because I'm going to show you the difference of it. I actually have my Excel guys working on making a prettier version of this, because, but anyway. So if you use a cap rate, which up here, the cap rate is 10%, then my value, when I look at a property, I don't want it to make less than a 10% cap rate. Again, that's this market. Every town is different. You go to Boston, it's going to be something. Oh, sorry. I goofed this. Sorry, I'm still watching with that Home Depot thing. You go to Boston, it'll be a different number. So that tells me that this property here is worth $215,000 at a 10 cap, based on, with no maintenance vacancy management taken out. Everyone on the market, if I'm listing your property, I would call it $215,000.
How did you get the cap rate?
So the cap rate, and good question, and I will dive into this much more detail. So the cap rate is definitely a function of your community and a function of your needs. For me, this area, when I first started buying here in 2008, actually, I was getting 18 to 20% cap rates, because it was very much a buyer's market up here. I would buy, fix, and be done with properties for approximately $30,000 a unit, and I'd rent them out for about $650 per side. So I just were absurd cap rates. Now that wasn't a lot of dollars in my pocket. 650 is not a lot left, but it was a great cap rate. So cap rate is and so cap rate, the formula is cap rate is net operating income or AGI. The world would call this one net operating income. To me, it's not net because it doesn't take maintenance vacancy management into account. But cap is profit. We'll call it, it's a better way to say it. Profit over really cost. So if you have 10,000 a year in profit and you have 100 in cost, that property costs 100,000. We ignore things like transfer taxes. We ignore things like, title insurance. Those are just their cost of doing business. They're not really cost of the property. But obviously 10,000 over 100,000 is a 10% cap rate. Now, if you go back to original algebra, this can dance its way around 100 other ways. Meaning you can figure out what your cost should be based on your cap rate and your profit. If your profit is $10,000, divide by cap, it'll tell you your value. Meaning, if your profit is $10,000 and you want to make a 10% cap rate, then you have to have a purchase price of $100,000. You take your profit of $10,000, you divide it by 10%, 0.1. That's the other reason I use 10 is it's easy. You move the decimal point over one. It's just an easy number. Then that property should be worth $100,000 to me. One of the thought experiments that I love to use with rental investors is, and I'll use town names and it won't mean anything, but Dallas is the hoity-toity town around here where the doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs live. Wilkes-Barre is a not poor, but less wealthy, inner city, small, okay, yeah, there are some poor parts of it, but you got those two choices. If I'm going to make $10,000 a year, in Wilkes-Barre, a property is going to cost me $100,000. In Dallas, it's going to cost me $200,000. And I had this discussion with a very well-known broker in our area, Kevin Smith, who has the entirely opposite approach to mine. My answer is, my question to all my students is always, which one is better? Do I want the 2-unit in Dallas that makes me $10,000 a year, or do I want the 2-unit in Wilkes-Barre that makes me $10,000 a year? And very often the students will say they want the 2-unit in Dallas because it's a better property, and they're not wrong. Except in Dallas, it's $10,000. I'm sorry?
I didn't say anything.
I'm sorry. In Dallas, it's $10,000 over $200,000 a year. In Wilkes-Barre, I'm just trying to figure out my contractor is just standing at Home Depot, and I'm like, why aren't you sending me the payment thing? In Wilkes-Barre, it's $10,000 a year, and it's $100,000. Now, obviously, I mean, I can do the math, but 10,000 over 200,000 is a 5% return. 10,000 over 100,000 is a 10% return. So for me personally, I want to buy Wilkes-Barre because I want the higher return. I'm eating off my rents. I'm living off my rents, partially. Kevin Smith, broker of a very large firm in our area, actually just recently sold out to another firm. This was his choice. He would buy the Dallas property, making half the return. The logic being, and he's not wrong, that his clients are better. They have something to lose. There's going to be less damage. There's going to be less drama. He has to renovate to a higher level. And he and I were having this discussion back when the market was $650 a month for a 3-bedroom in Wilkes-Barre, and he was probably getting $1,000. But he would rather choose this option than this option because he would rather the better tenants, the better property, the better equity, and less return. And so philosophically, your cap rate, what you want for your cap rate, what you want for your return is a philosophical as much as an actual question. But your math is, so if your profit is $10,000 and your cap is 0.1, 10%. And I know I was formerly an engineer, so I fly through this math. This is math that you want me to go slower on, let me know. But if I divide my profit by my cap, it'll tell me what the property is worth to me. So whether it's profit divided by cost is your cap rate, or oh my God, Carlos, when will they send the payment request? Oh, okay, never mind. Apparently he already checked out. He just didn't bother telling me. Sorry about that. So this guy's I have a broken step at one of my rentals, and he's, at noon, he's just now getting to it. I'm like, we don't wait till noon. We get to it at 8 a.m. when there's a broken step. Anyway. But basically, so what you want for your return is entirely a bit of a market question. And I can send you some resources of where you look up the average cap rate in your market and so forth, as well as it is about what it's worth to you. And again, this is why I invest up here as opposed to investing in Philly or Allentown. And this is why a lot of my investors up here are from Philly, Allentown, New York, LA, Jersey, because they can't find the returns in their home market. I have one client who's I think he's a staff sergeant or something in the military. He's deployed. Thankfully deployed stateside right now, but whatever. And he invests everywhere he moves to. He buys a property, but he does most of his actual investing out here. Because, and I asked him this, I said, well, why? Because he's like, it's very hard to turn an 8, 10, or a 12 into a 0. He's like, if I'm buying in a Boston or a whatever, where it's a 3, 4, 5, it's very easy for that to turn into a 0. Costs go up, rents stagnate, something happens. It's very easy for me to lose that. If I'm starting at 8, 10, 12%, I've got more return, but B, it's harder for an outsized expense, like buy a furnace, which you should have planned for, but whatever. But he's like, it's just harder to turn that into a 0. So a lot of times your return on investment is that's the reason we're here. Now I do want to cover one thing, that there's two definitions of the exact same formula: cap and cash on cash return. And I'm switching the screen to show you where I'm at right now. And I'm going through the basic terminology here. Again, I am not trying to make this, you're going to learn these topics today. I'm just trying to make this so you kind of see a general overview of how I analyze and how I think through a property. So
I am more familiar. I recognize the term cash on cash, but the other cap rate, I had never really done anything with.
And they are the exact same profit. They're the exact same formula. So cap is profit over value, profit over cost. Cash on cash is also profit over value, or profit over cost. The difference, and this is, I'm circling this back to why leverage is important. I have many investors who come to me, I have, whatever millions of dollars, I don't need to borrow money. And I feel the more money you have, the more you need to borrow money. And I'll show you why that in a second. But the difference here is, this is cash on cash. Cap rate is all money in, regardless of source. Another way to say it is, does not care about mortgage. So your mortgage, when you're figuring out your profit, you haven't taken your mortgage out yet. Your cap rate profit is everything before your mortgage, whether it's before your maintenance, vacancy management, or after, is everything before your mortgage. You can choose whether you have an MBO. To me, it's always after, but whatever. Cash on cash is your pocket money divided by or your pocket, I should say your pocket profit. Your pocket money is kind of a vague way to say it. Out of pocket. So this one here is I took $20,000 out of my pocket to make a $100,000 purchase because it's 20% down. This one here is every dollar that comes out of the property is divided by every dollar that went into it. Didn't matter if it came from me, my aunt, my bank, whatever. And so cash on cash and cap rate are the same mathematical formula. Entirely the same mathematical formula. This one is just after mortgage. And to me, this is the one that I care. Okay. I care about both, and I'm now a recent convert to caring more about DSCR than anything. But this is the one this is what you live and die by. Now, there's a third one that many investors use. I don't personally use a lot, except when I'm talking with an investor that does, which is DPD, dollars per door. Which is real simple. And you can use your cash on cash, you can use your after mortgage dollar, you can use your cap rate dollar, whichever. It's simply a building puts out $500 a year, it's a 2-unit, or $500 a month, it's a 2-unit. Then it's $250 per door. That's dollars per door. It's real simple. I have one very good repeat customer I've worked with for over a decade. He actually lives down by Allentown. He buys mostly up here, and he's been one of my clients who's bought consistently through COVID. He's pretty much like, oh, I'm making a little bit less now, but I'm still acquiring properties. Okay, although I think I bought one, he bought two, so he's not that much more aggressive than I am. He only looks at dollars per door. He takes after my bank has taken their piece, and he does 30% maintenance vacancy management. He pretty much does my whole song. He took my class a few years ago. He's like, all right, I have $300 coming out of a building. I have a 2-unit building. Dollars per door is $150. $150 is my minimum. I'll buy the building. It makes $140. $150 is his minimum. He simply won't buy it unless he can, fiddle the numbers or find some way to make it work. So dollars per door is just another easy way to say, okay, after everything, I get this.
Can you say that again though, like the dollar? So it's
yeah. So and actually, So basically, and I'm going to show on a spreadsheet now. But basically, so if you have, and I'm going to switch over to the other tab. I'm going to steal the exact same rental numbers as on the other example. So, okay, fine. I'm just cutting and pasting something over. So, okay, right. All right. So basically, oops, I just goofed. There we go. I'm back. All right. So I'm just sorry. I had normally I have these things pre-made, but I forgot to pre-make this one. So just add a row to the left. Move everything down so it lines up. All right. So and my cap rate in this case is, and I'll use a cap of 0.1 because this just needs something it can reference by. All right, so this is, and we haven't touched maintenance vacancy management yet. This is still without a maintenance vacancy management number in it. So this is rent, tax, insurance, and a cap rate because I haven't taken my mortgage out of it. Okay, I have not taken my mortgage out of the number. That's why it's saying cap rate here. cash on cash is going to be the exact same math, except I have to add a line in here to pay the mortgage. And I'm just going to use $1,500 a month as a number of what the mortgage would be. Now, you're not going to use your cash on cash return to determine your value of your property, because obviously your mortgage lender is taking care of that for you. So right now you have taken $209,000 out of your pocket to make $20,900 a year if it's a 10 cap building. You've taken 209 out to buy that. Now you come to the exact same investment, except I only have to take this out of my pocket. I'm only taking $41,000 out of my pocket, but I'm only making, and I'm just going to use a round number of $15,000 a year as my mortgage payment, just because it's just easy. And I will show you mortgage calculators in a second. But so now I have $5,900 over $41,000. So this is the money that came out of my. This is lending, and this is cash buy. So if I have $5,900 coming out of my pocket, going back into my pocket, and I took $41,800 out of it, I'm making 14% because I used a bank. I'm only putting over here. I'm putting $20,000 back in my pocket at the end of the year. Over here, I'm only putting $6,000 in my pocket. Less money, but I'm making a much higher percentage. I only took 20% of my money out. That means I can buy 5 buildings instead of 1 with the same starting money. So if I use a bank to leverage me, I'm making $30,000 as opposed to $20,000. So this is why you're going to want to use lenders. Now, not all lenders are created equal. We'll cover that in the lending topic, where if you're paying 12%, I just had a woman. She ended up not getting the house, but she wanted to borrow $50,000 from me at 12% for 9 years on a rental down in Georgia. And she's I've known her for years. She's a good wholesaler. She knows what she's doing. And I said to her, I said, Alexis, what the living are you thinking? 12% on a rental? And she's got personal reasons why it made sense, whatever. She's like, no. She's like, I know I'm basically breaking even, but this is whatever it fits in her lifetime. Obviously, at a certain percentage rate, it's not going to be a happy game for you. But this is why you borrow rather, instead of buying everything for cash. Now, take the exact same result. So $20,900, we'll assume it's a double. So if you have $20,900 and you divide that by 12 months, so that's what you're taking home every month, and you divide that by the 2 units. So before your mortgage, let me actually move this over a little bit. We'll cover the MVM thing for now. Before your mortgage, so this is your profit monthly in dollars per door. It's a 2 unit. Now, that's dollars per door if you did not have any kind of lending whatsoever. Real world, we're borrowing. That's what we're doing. Just, it is what it is. So now my profit is the exact same math. That, again, cap rate and cash on cash are interchangeable math numbers. But I'm starting with a smaller number. Still, I like this deal. Okay, I've not taken out maintenance, vacancy management. I'm about to hate this deal. But I like this deal. I won't hate it. I'll like it less. But if I'm making $5,900 a year, $500 a month, I'm putting $245 a month in my pocket after everything is paid. So I'm making my 14% cash on cash return. But if I like to talk about dollars per door, I like to talk about, okay, in my client's case, his goal, I think he might have made it, I'm not sure, was to buy enough property to pay for his daughter's college education, so that the monthly would pay for the education. That's why dollars per door was his like slavish purpose. He's a reporter for AP. He's got his family situation set up. Whatever, fine. The logic was to invest this money and buy enough to do that. And so when he had that annual whatever dollars per, and this is how he decided it. This was how he married into that equation. So does that kind of explain dollars per door a little better?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to take, and we'll keep it all on one screen because I don't want to have things like scroll up, scroll down. I'm just going to copy this over here. Now we'll look at it, and we're going to add one line to this. MVM, which is maintenance vacancy management. Now, this is a soft, squishy, esoteric one because everyone has their own theory. Your lender, like a Joe Scarice or whatever, will say 5% vacancy, 5% management, and life goes on. First of all, I don't know about in Philly, but in Northeast PA, you're never finding a manager for 5%, and if you do, they totally suck. So to me, I don't know where they're getting that number. 5% vacancy. Okay, I don't ever have 5% vacancy. That's a huge number. But they don't do anything for maintenance. But I like 20 to 30% maintenance coming out of the equation. I like 35 actually, but I'll live with the other. So let's just say a 33%. Now all of a sudden, is no longer AGI. This minus this minus this minus this minus this is 11,900. Now, and this is, to me, this is your net number. This is what you actually have coming out the other side. $11,900. Now, my building here at a 10 cap was worth $209,000. Exact same building, didn't change a darn thing to any of the other numbers. It's only worth $119,000 to me. This is the difference when I go to speak with a seller. Like, listen, I can list you and get you $200,000. I'm going to give you 120 myself. 120, and you got your money in 3 to 4 weeks. 200, and we'll put it on the market and see what the world says to you. And I'll tell you right now, I have a 2-unit that has been sitting at that $200,000 number. He's going to have to take my offer or an offer similar. I'm not going to, once it's listed, I don't compete against my clients, but he's going to have to take it. So we do the exact same thing here on, remember, this is your cash on cash category, and this is your cap rate category. So all I'm saying is, if you take maintenance vacancy management out at whatever your percentage is, whatever your comfort level is, it's going to change the value of, it's going to change what the property is worth to you. And here's where comparable sales and income valuation diverge. This property right here that I'm saying to me is worth $119,000. My bank's giving me a loan based on this. Or they're considering it worth this. I'm not taking the whole amount of money, but they want to give me 80% of that. I don't want to take 80% of that. Actually, I kind of do and don't. I'll get into that. That's a whole different topic. But basically, what I find a property worth to make it worth putting in my collection, and I'm not a big investor. I've got like 15, 20 properties. I'm not huge. I want to get to about 50, but I had 50. We sold off because during COVID, people gave us way too much money for these properties. And I was like, sure, I got 30 grand into it. You want to give me 150? I'll take it. See you later. But adding a maintenance vacancy management pad will drop your value.
And that MVM's you saying around 30%.
Yeah, I mean, I like 30 to 35%. That will not work. I mean, I was sitting on the sidelines for the last 4 years because properties wouldn't work on it.
Is that
Because
30? Is that 30% of the rent? Like, is that
yeah,
where you point? Yeah, okay.
yeah. So this is always done. This is done out of 30% and rent. I should be a little more. I'll say gross income instead of rent because if there's laundry, if whatever your other stupid charges might be, 30% of the gross income. You might do 20. You might do 15. Now here's where, and I've got a client. We manage 20 of his units up here. He owns another dozen down in Florida. He pretty much doesn't do maintenance vacancy management down in Florida because all the buildings were built in 1990s, and the swamp gator, whatever they call it, it's a different kind of an air conditioning system, and the whole system costs $1,500. And obviously in Florida, heat's not really a big deal. He's got some electric baseboards. So he's like, I don't have the high things to repair that I do up here. And he happens to rent condos where the condo complex takes care of the roofs and stuff. So if you're in a market where that's too high, but here's why I do 30%.
Well, see, I was just thinking because I've been going back and forth on a 5-unit here, and it's because it needs work. I mean, right, it's got tenants in it, but I mean the rent's nothing because like it needs to be fixed up.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, where does that, like, when you're running the numbers and you're looking at it, like, where do you factor that in at?
Okay. I'm sorry. It's a 5-unit down there, but where do I factor what in at? I'm not quite sure.
Do what now?
No, you say it's a 5-unit, but where do we factor in what? The maintenance vacancy management?
Like if you're purchasing it, but you know it needs work, so you're gonna have to put that more money
I see.
into
Okay.
it. Like, where
right.
would you put that? Like in these numbers, like is there a spot you could kind of factor that in, or?
Yeah. So basically, these numbers. That's a great question. I'm sorry. I kind of skipped over. These numbers are. I'm just kind of adjusting here so I can do a better job of explaining it. These numbers are repaired to the condition necessary to generate those rents. So in this particular property that's generating the 27, or will, when we rent the other side, generate the 27,000. Actually a little more, but 29. That one, we only bought it for $100,000. And the way the numbers actually worked out on that one is 150 is what we're willing to have into it. A little more than the 119, because my other costs are actually more like 600. And I think the insurance was a little lower, but whatever. It was 150 was our target number. We bought it for 100. We put 50 into it, and so we said, okay, 150, fine, done. That's where we're at. So this number, whatever this number happens to be, that says that this is my cap value. It's this, then it's minus the repairs. And so when I do, and I have a whole, we will cover a whole hour or more, a couple hours on repair estimations. But primarily, I mean, if you want to send me a link to the property, I'll walk you through it. Primarily, I have a whole spreadsheet for paint and flooring. I never do carpet. I always do vinyl flooring, vinyl plank. Kitchens, bathrooms, whatever. And I have a pretty much a standard sheet that works in my market. It won't really work. My formulas will work in Philly, but we'd have to look into, okay, my labor rate is $30 an hour. Your labor rate in Philly might be 60. So
I'm not in Philly.
Okay. So But you, yeah, but okay. So I mean, what? So where is this property you're looking at?
It's actually in Derry.
Okay, all right. So I mean, if you whether we do it today or we do it a different day, if you want to send me a link to it, if you want to send me a link to it, I will, before you make an offer on it. Like if you send it to me, I'll walk you through the entire I'll do the entire analysis on it for you, so you can see exactly what it would want to be. Do you want to give me the address? I'll see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can. I'll have to find it really quickly here.
But yeah, so all of these numbers are, and attached to your other question is, we don't buy, or okay, I don't buy. I don't buy based on projected. I don't buy, like my client with 20 units up here. A lot of his rents are under market, and he wants me to buy it from him based on the potential rents. I said, Vinny, I don't buy potential, because potential means I have to put time, money, and effort into it. And I've been your manager for a year and a half. I know what your properties need. I'm going to buy current rents. If you're current now, I might. Okay, if comparable sales are worth $1 million and rents tell me it's worth $750, I'm going to split the difference, because I know what I can list it for and go the other way. But I'm not going to buy based on a promise of, oh, I know you can get $1,600 for this. Well, what if I don't? Then I've paid you for it and I don't get it.
Well, you may have just answered my question then, because this here, like, this is an older lady who's got it. She hasn't raised rents in 15 years. I know people that's renting in the area, and like low, like each unit should go for like 650 low, and she's charging 300 each.
Right. And so, that's where we would get creative, and we would, so I mean, so here's what I would do. Is the first thing is, what are the comparable sales are always part of the equation, because comparable sales are always part of the equation because that's what your bank is going to, if it's a 5-unit or under, that's what your bank is going to look at. So you always have that, so you always have that, but also, how, to me, it would be okay. So a good way to say it, I'm trying to prep on this. So I would run the numbers based on 300, and then I would run the numbers based on and I use the HUD rents for my market, the Section 8 rents for my market, because I think that's a good, safe way, because I always know I can Section 8 myself into it at those numbers, and it's the Section 8 numbers minus the repairs needed. It's not the current numbers minus the repairs needed, because she's currently making that money. I don't need to do any repairs to earn the 300. She's got the 300. And then somewhere between the 300 rents and the bigger rents minus the repairs would be probably where it would need to be. Does that kind of make sense? And then I would help you. It would kind of become a bit of an art.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, I hadn't even considered looking at like the Section 8 rents. That's a good idea. I never considered that.
The other tool that I often will use is Rentometer, which we have a subscription to, and they do allow you a certain number of uses for free. But Rentometer is basically, it scans Facebook and Craigslist and other sources like that. In my market, it tends to be about 10% high, so it's a tool, but it's not a great tool. And obviously local knowledge. If hey, this person's renting at, consistently, reliably renting at that number. Sorry. Consistently, reliably renting at that number, then okay, fine. You know that 600. And the reason I'm careful with that is because I have a lot of buyers and sellers around here telling me, "Oh, you can get 1,600 for a 3-bedroom." And I'm like, "Well, I'm sorry. I run a management company with 50 units, and we're not getting 1,600 for any of our 3-bedrooms." Are there people getting that? Yes. But if I assume I'm going to get 1,600, which are people getting 1,600 for 3 bedrooms or here? Yes. But I end up getting 12. Kind of messed up. If I assume 12 and I get 16, woohoo, I win.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, I'd rather play it safe than sorry.
And that's the same. And at this point in all of this, it is a how do I put it? All of these numbers should be inflated the wrong way. Meaning, you look at the property. Oh, the kitchen. Yeah, you don't say to yourself, the kitchen's okay. I'm not going to count the kitchen. You say to yourself, okay, the kitchen's okay. I better put 3,000 at the kitchen. If I don't spend it later, then okay, fine. But if I don't budget for it and I need to spend it, I lose. If I budget for it and I don't need to spend it, I win. So you're always doing, and that's why you're doing 30% maintenance vacancy management pad. That's why you're doing it. And I encourage everyone to not do, okay, I'm not encouraging you not to do self-management. Hell, I do self-management. But I'm encouraging you not to do unpaid self-management. Meaning, if you run your numbers assuming, oh, I'm the manager and I don't need to pay for the manager. First of all, guess what? You just bought yourself an unpaid job. Second of all, what about that day when you're like, I don't want to be a manager? I was the property maintenance guy and manager and buyer and seller for my businesses for 5 years. I drove the ugliest damn truck in town around. And I've ruined so many pieces of clothing because I didn't expect to fix this. And well, I'm here and oh crap, this spray foam just got on my new suit. Well, so much for that. And okay, was it well-paid work? No. But I could at least say, hey, my maintenance vacancy management pad, it's now my money. And remember, the maintenance vacancy management pad is also not gone money, I guess, would be the way to put it. Meaning, if you don't spend it, it's not gone, basically. You let that pile up until you've got a reasonable number of dollars in the account, and at that point, you can start saying, "Oh, I don't need to put this aside anymore."
Is there a certain percentage that you pay yourself?
Yes, yeah. It's very important that you pay yourself, and it's also very important because when you go to sell it, again, your comparable sales in a smaller 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 4 unit is going to matter. Your comparable sales. So I was actually one of my other students was on the phone with somebody. Can do it. I'll call soon. This is, by the way, this is the same thing you get. Like if this person's on the phone with the seller, and they're going back and forth, and frankly, the seller owes more than it's worth. And so I just, I had to run a quick comp for him, and I just sent him a picture. I said, it looks bad, but we can still do the deal. Because also when you sell it, if you are selling to a savvy investor, they're going to look and say, well, wait, you didn't take your maintenance vacancy management up. It's kind of like I'm in the process of buying a rooming house which has a bar downstairs. And the guy is telling me that, and both topics scare me because I've never done either one, but the guy's telling me, oh, well, the bar makes $100,000 a year. And I said, okay, really? That's wonderful. He's like, well, yeah, but my sister and I don't take salaries. So basically the bar breaks even, or probably less than breaks even, because it probably cost me to have 2 people full time
Mm.
all in is going to cost me probably $100,000 a year. So that's kind of where So basically, if you take these numbers out and you're making money with these numbers taken out, then for the person who doesn't take them out, you're winning. And also, a little bit of it is depending on the condition of the property. My client owns in Florida. They're built in 1990. Yada yada yada. He doesn't need the huge maintenance vacancy management because everything is post 1990. Up here in Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, everything is 1890. We're talking knob and tube wiring, and all the things that nowadays we think shouldn't have happened, but they happen. They're there. So what's the address on the property you're talking about?
Okay, let me, so it's 123 East 2nd Street. And it's in
Okay.
Derry.
Is that Barre?
Derre. I mean, Derry.
123 East 2nd Ave, Derry, PA. Okay, fine. And all I'm doing, and I'll actually switch to the screen just so you see what I'm doing. I'm just trying to see it and kind of get whatever I can for it.
Oh wait, that's not it. I don't know
Oh.
what.
East 2nd Ave.
I texted it to you, but yeah, East 2nd Street.
Yeah.
It's actually Derry. It comes up Derry Borough, but usually I can find it with just Derry.
All right, so let me just I'll pull it up on my phone. Oh wow, it's huge. It needs a lot of work. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got. Okay, so do you want to do this now, or should we do this on a different call? Kind of run through the numbers and see. All right. So is this actually what it looks like? It's all kind of like the siding is all blotchy and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's brick, so it needs like pressure washed and repainted.
Oh, this isn't like rotting off siding. Okay.
No, it's like the paint scraping off of it.
Okay.
And on the front, that weird brown color, it's because someone has a window unit in, and that water is like running down from their window unit.
Okay. All right.
So
It
yeah, the
says
outside
building.
wasn't bad. What we seen was the inside, like the kitchen, like it's really old floorings. Like it probably needs some updated flooring. It does need like a fresh coat of paint.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, and I'm going to I'm actually trying. There it is. Okay, so it just came up on Zillow and Redfin because I want to show this to you sort of on the screen, kind of whether we go 9 million layers deep on this or we could sort of break this up. But I want to kind of give you an idea of. So it's not that one. It's this one. Okay, so let me switch to this tab. All right, so what I'm seeing in the pictures, and then we'll kind of like go through it, separately, is you're gonna have to power wash. You're gonna want to do something up there. I mean, obviously you've got soffit issues. I'm gonna guess you have roof issues or age of roof and whatever. But I mean, obviously you've got probably 10, 15. I would have to sit down do some measurements, but 10, 15,000. These units. I mean, if you're at 300, and again, I don't know what I'd have to look at what the market is looking for. But when I finish a unit, let me just 57 Blackman. All right, so and this is my market, this is how we deliver them, and we frankly over deliver them. I'll be honest with you. This is how we deliver. Can you see this one now?
Mm-hmm.
So this
Oh, yeah,
is
nice.
what we do for finished. Every market doesn't need this, and this might be low end for some markets. And we didn't pick the flooring. The flooring was already done. But basically, we're doing LVP. We're doing just simple paint job, a light gray, whatever. So when I'm saying what I'm doing is I'm doing this. I'm doing LVP I'm doing paint and flooring for $10 a square foot. I'm doing what else is it called? And then kitchens and bathrooms and whatever. So here I'm seeing a lot of the rooms look like they've got hardwood floors and they're just a paint job.
Mm.
I would, again, I don't, but we can talk about what you're going to do. But I see painting this. I probably would put in a nicer surround, only because I think the surrounds that have the little shelves and stuff make people more interested. I probably wouldn't replace the tub. I'm on the fence. Sometimes I leave them alone. Sometimes I actually use the enamel paint on them. I just find they're more difficult to replace than they're worth. I mean, it depends on. I mean, if you're renting in the $300, $400, $600 range, if I was renting, you know, in my area right now, a one bedroom is 750, a two bedroom is nine something. I would probably, at the 750 rate, I'd probably leave this alone. At the 9 rate, I'd probably refloor it. I definitely, and of course, I repaint everything. You got newer systems. The furnace looks pretty good. And for a smaller apartment, the kitchen's certainly serviceable. I'm not looking at how many bedrooms it is. Does the actual building roof look kind of rough like this?
So that's the garage. She does rent the garage out separately. I think like 400 a month to someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the roof didn't look bad.
But like, does the roof of the main building look about the same age as that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because basically that roof is, I mean, it'll be dry as long as it's dry for, but obviously that roof is not long for this world. And this little roof no one cares about, but the roof on that's going to be an expensive roof. I just spent $18,000, and this was plywood and everything, on the building's about 1,000 square feet on each floor, about 1,000 square feet. So whatever that is when you peek it out, I think it was like a 15 or an 18 square roof. So basically, I would look at it, and I'm going to go back to the listing now and look at what it tells me for square footage and stuff. So it says, it tells me how many square footage. How nice. Do we know how many square feet?
I do not remember.
I'm going to guess ballpark, probably what, 4,000?
Yeah, probably. That's probably 3,500 or.
All right. So, and I didn't expect to go here, so I'll show you my better looking spreadsheet the next time. But if we have 4,000 square feet total, and it's probably 3,500. 4,000 probably too high. So that's your total square foot. And I'm going to just lump everything in. I'm not going to look at, this is common area, this is not common area. Also, I just want to let you know that I love common area buildings. I personally don't like, for me personally, smaller common area buildings can be a bit of a challenge because no one ever cleans up the hallway. No one ever does like the lawn mow. And in my doubles, people mow their own lawns and whatever. So just realize you're going to have those kinds of costs. Someone's going to have to go over there once a week and once every couple of weeks and just 5 minutes sweep out the hallway. A lot of times, what I do in my smaller common areas is I'll literally pay a tenant $50 a week and say, "Listen, your job is keep." I don't take it off their rent. I pay them for it. I don't like deductions from rent because then it gets, when you get to court, well, I was doing all this stuff for him for free. No, you weren't. You were paying your rent, and I was paying you for service. Now, in my market, my paint and flooring is 10 a square foot. So obviously, that's going to be 35,000. And how many units was it?
5.
5. And I'm just going to put 2,000 per kitchen. Now it's already painted and floored. Okay, move this over a row just so I have that. And actually, on these kitchens, I'm not even going to put 2,000. But you pick a number for the kitchen. You say $1,000, meaning countertops, cabinets, if they need it. If you and your comfort, your experience in your market, because believe me, I was not doing this when my apartments were renting for $650 a month. I was getting the cheapest flooring I could from Home Depot for 65 cents a square foot, and I was going real basic. But anyway, so we walk through it. I was trying to get back to my own spreadsheet here because I have too many damn tabs open. bathrooms. I don't know, $500 a bathroom. And so you do all of this stuff, and you got windows. For me, windows are a squishy, meaning if they're not broken, I ain't replacing them. But I might, if I'm buying a crappy building, I might plan for the fact that I probably do have to replace them. And then I can play with this number. Roof. Again, roof is dry now, but how long will it be dry for?
Mm-hmm.
Also, you want to talk to your insurance company about that, because a lot of insurance companies now, if the roof is more than 15 years old, and your bank as well, they're not covering the roof, and the bank might even require the roof to be replaced. So, but whatever, roof, and then systems. And if the systems are fine, and your contractor, your inspector says they're fine, you win, and you break it all down. So you end up with a number that says, okay, to make this building its perfect self, I'm going to have to do this to it, and I got 100,000 of work to make it its perfect self. Now, if we jump back to the spreadsheet, and you said what, 5 of them at 600 a piece?
No, she's only, currently she's only charging, 3 units is 300, and then the other 2 units, I think it's 400.
So she's getting 1,700, which will annualize at, and actually I got this whole thing by 12. So she's getting that, and you think you're going to get what when you do it out the other end?
I think at minimum you could get just the low ball at $650 each.
$650 for all 5?
For each one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and truthfully, I'd be shocked if anywhere you'd even get. I mean, right there, you get 19,000. Now your taxes are probably what, 20? Are they about 2,500?
Probably.
And I do. I mean, again, this is where you've got to double check it with your local experts. But I do $800 a unit for taxes. Boom. So and this is AGI. I'm not. So I should actually just to do it the way I teach it. We take out an MVM of equals 0.3 times that. Copy, that goes there. And so then you have 20,400 minus that. And I know it's already there. I'm just making sure I don't skip something here. That's all I'm doing. So it's only netting, by my numbers, $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, understand that before the MVM, right here, it's netting about $10,000 a year. And I will double check after we're offline. I'll double check these numbers and see if they're, we would have to. I'll send you the spreadsheet. We'll have to enter this, but so it's 11,900 if you don't have an MBM. It's 5,780 if you do. But here's the difference: when you get it to the correct numbers, assuming they don't reassess you, which is fairly unlikely, it's worth 188. So you've tripled the value of the building by doing the work you're talking about doing. Now, just to kind of bring it to a good spot here, is we're looking at $88,000 in repairs of what we want to do. So now my repairs, because you don't have to do these repairs to get this value. How much does she want for the building?
She's asking, actually they said she's getting ready to drop it to $130.
Okay, so she's asking $130, and here's where So basically, the building's probably worth, if you go off projected, which I don't, but I shouldn't say I don't. I don't like to. So if you go off projected, 93,000 after you take out your repairs, 57.8. Now let's just call it an average of the two. 57.8 plus that divided by 2, boom, 75,000. Now here's where how do I put this? Here's where you're going to have a problem with this property. Because right now your adjusted gross income is 5780, which is 5780 over 12. It's 481. Even if you skip MVM and you say 11.9 over 12, 991. These are your two numbers that no MVM, you're getting that per month before mortgage. MVM, you're getting that per month before mortgage. Now, if we go to mortgage calculator, and she wants 130,000.
Mhm.
Mortgage calculator.org is like my go-to. I mean, I have a different one on my phone because I don't like their phone one, and let's see, you're 6.5. 20 years. I mean, you might get 30 year, but we'll just stay with 20 for now. Oops. Your mortgage payment is going to be on 000 $1,000 a month. And that's with no money borrowed for repairs. That's taking the whole 130, so you're not putting any money out of your pocket. Now, by the way, my philosophy is whatever number I put in the mortgage calculator includes every dollar from my pocket. I don't believe your down payment should not make the same return as your bank money. Because wherever your cash is sitting now, it's doing something for you, I hope. So, if you put 50,000 of your own money into it, add that to your mortgage. But right now, if you borrowed straight up 135 or 130 at 6.5 for 20 years, no taxes, no nothing coming out of it, you're paying the bank 969.
Mhm.
And this is the reason I haven't bought a property in the last 5 years, or not many, is because you've only got, if you take nothing out for maintenance, vacancy management, you've only got 991
Mhm.
right now today. So right now today, if you take nothing, no profit, no maintenance, no vacancy, no management, you can pay your mortgage.
Hmm.
Now, you slide over a little bit, and you are, actually, we're doing NOI here because we took our MVM out. You slide over a little bit, and you say, okay, I got 18.8 now instead of 57.80. So I got 18.8 coming out. So now $1,500 a month. I'm not even getting the DSCR. I'm just saying what the actual. I'm taking no profit. I've taken my MVM out in this case. Now we go back to mortgage calculator. And what's $1,500 by me? So what do I have to do if all of this changes? What am I getting myself up to get a $1,500 a month payment? Okay. So 200,000, roughly, maybe a little more. Call it 210, whatever you can play with these numbers till you get where you need to go. Okay, so 210. So 210, the building, when done, will pay the mortgage. And you won't have any profit, but you'll have your maintenance vacancy management covered. So you can buy the building for 130, you can fix it, and you can have basically no money, roughly no money into it. I mean, as long as you stayed under 220. You won't make a profit, but that's what it will support a mortgage of 220. Now, two things I want to show you. Is one is if you got a 30-year mortgage, you go to a DSCR lender, you get a 30-year mortgage. Your mortgage comes down hugely. So if you were to whoopsie, what did I just hit? Oh, compare loan types instead of calculate. So a current offer or a current asking rate of 130, 6.5, 30 years is $821 a month. Now back, and I'm just going back here, even on a 30-year mortgage, building doesn't leak anything. And again, we will go over this in more detail. I'm flying through this one just to kind of give you an idea. I'm scared about this project for you because
Well, I have been too, and that's why I've been like going back and forth.
yeah, I mean, she's and the truth is, if she wanted to sell this for 130, she's about a year too late. A year ago, there were probably some stupid money out there. I don't think there's any stupid money out there right now. And what I would do here is is I'll work with you, in the next session or whatever, because I do have to get to my 2:00. But I will work to come up with a number that is the right number. But the last very brief thing is we covered debt service coverage ratio briefly, and we talked about the 1.2 number, but I haven't done any of it here. So you want to take to see what makes the bank happy. Not every bank uses DSCR, but every banker damn well knows what DSCR is. So you take this number and you divide it by 1. We'll just use 1.2. We'll just use 1.2. And that shouldn't be another dot. That should be a slash. So that means the banker, if your profit is 481, the banker doesn't want to see you spending on your mortgage any more than 401. If your profit, and again, there's really no profit here, but if your net operating income is 991, banker doesn't want to see you having a mortgage payment of over 826. Now, in their minds, that 0.2 is your profit. 1 is your mortgage payment, 0.2 is your profit. So they're totally happy. If your mortgage payment is 826 and you've covered what they think MVM should be, they're going to be okay with that. So they would probably say, except unfortunately, you see 130,000 as an 821 mortgage. They'd be happy with 130, except getting that 826, you didn't take anything out for MVM. So they would probably be happy. I'm gonna use a round number. If we were to use the MVM number that they like, which is usually 15%, this usually works for them. So they're going to want a mortgage payment on this building of around $613 a month in its current rented state. They're going to want to see around $600 a month. So then you start assuming my 6.5 and assuming my other assumptions are correct. You start screwing with the numbers. And you say, all right, $100,000. They're probably going to say the building can survive at about $100,000 to fit their numbers. Again, I'm greedy on my MVMs, but to fit their numbers, they're going to say around $100,000. I'm probably going to say, and again, this is, and we will cover this more in detail, tomorrow whenever you want to. But I'm going to say more like, to be generous, 70. If I find my stupid screen. There it is. So I'm not going to like a 15% MVM because that's going to give you 5% for maintenance and 10% for a manager or whatever. I really wouldn't go below 2.2, 20%. So then I got to get a 543 mortgage payment. So with a 15% mortgage payment, or 15% MVM rather, 30-year loan, the building's probably okay for $100,000 all in. And that's leaving the buildings look the way it looks. That's, you know what? Tenants are happy. I'm not saying that's the wrong choice, because when you make improvements, you're going to increase your value, you're going to increase your rents. But if you were to be at a 20%, you got to be at 543 for a 20% MVM. So I have to make this like 80,000, I'm going to guess. And you get real comfortable guessing pretty close. Okay, so actually 80 is even too low. 85,000. And literally, you do a lot of this. You do a lot of just plugging stuff into mortgage calculator and letting it spit out a number. 850,000 really would be an appropriate number. But okay, 537. So right now, I wouldn't be uncomfortable based on its current DSCR at $85,000. I really wouldn't be. I wouldn't be too off the rails on that.
Sure.
You know, and I mean, but before you make an offer, we would look at it a lot closer, because like the question is, when you turn that 85 into one, I mean, because there's going to be a lot of repairs in this building that are not going to increase your value. You have to at some point deal with this exterior. But none of your $300 a month tenants are going to pay a dime more when you make this building not look like dump.
Right.
So, really 85 would be an okay number. 65 is really where I'd probably be at on it. And of course she's not going to come to a 50. Now, the other thing would be, is this represented by a realtor or is this off market?
Realtor.
Okay. So the other conversation, which I could have with them, but most realtors hate, is seller finance or hold the note or blah, 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 blah. Because if she were saying, hey, you know what, I want 130 over the next 10 years, then you say, okay, well, I'm not putting money up front. Am I willing to play that game? If there's a mortgage to be taken over, if there's this, if there's that. But I mean, I'm assuming the main roof is, I'm looking at probably 40,000, 30, and this is my, a guesstimate, 30 grand by the time and I'm not sure I would ever repaint the brick, because all you end up doing is continuing to paint the brick. I probably would just power wash it off as it flakes. But, there's still, maybe there's, whatever. There's a number of what needs to be done that won't bring you another dime in money. Now, can you, make other value improvements? Now, also, we didn't discuss what utilities are paid for by the landlord.
It has each unit has its own electric. They pay their own electric, their own water, their own trash.
Okay, so the heat, so you don't have any utility bills on the building?
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's good, because if you did, your other category goes away.
Yeah, even worse.
And then you also have to look at things that aren't going to be in these pictures, like, what is the age of these systems? Is there asbestos in the building? It's always a good one, too. Also, is it in a flood zone? Is another one. And you also probably want mine subsidence insurance. This is Pennsylvania, so really, like, 85. I mean, or 85 would be kind of where I would be like, all right, I'm getting off the train. Now, when I look at this and I say, okay, I'm going to be NOI of 18,000 a year after I make the improvements to the income. Let's make sure that's correct. Improvements. Yeah. So if I'm 18,000 NOI after and this is again after my 30% MVM, that means that over 1.25, 1253. So that means that I will be, every dollar I want to ever be into this building for is a mortgage payment of 153. Wait. 1253, sorry. 1253. Okay, so 190 is every dollar when I get to my peak rents that I'm going to want to be in this building for. And yes, you see a divergence between my two numbers. Well, actually, not much of a divergence. I'm saying 85 top now, 190 when I get to the other end of the rainbow. But to get to the other end of the rainbow, I'm having to spend $88,000. So if I'm 190 when I'm done and I'm going to spend 90, I'm back around 90 again.
Okay.
So it kind of boxes it in a few different ways to say that, you know, that's where you kind of got to, that's where the numbers are telling us we have to be. Now we can also run comps to see what comparable sales are, but I'm just going to guess comparable sales ain't that great in that town. I hate Zillow's estimate, but does it give one? No. It'd be really helpful if it did. Oh, it's actually giving a 130s estimate. Wonder where they got that from. So, but and this kind of is a good place for me to kind of wrap it up a little bit. Is that while I do this, I'm going to go to PropStream. There it is. PropStream over here. So PropStream is my my partner's actually using it, so I can't log in. Anyway, so PropStream will tell me what the comparable sales are. But the one thing that I would say in all of this is that, I guess, cautionary tale time. I had a side-by-side double, and I renovated it, got it rented. I bought it for like $2,000. I threw some money at it, whatever. I got it rented. And I went to my banker and I said, okay, I want $30,000 for this. He said, well, he said, based on the value, I can give you $80,000. And I said, no. He's like, what do you mean no? Now, this was where I was at the time. I wasn't looking to make my next purchase. I said, I want what the building can afford. $80,000. I won't be taking a dime out of the building. I'll have $80,000. That's great, but I won't be I won't be making any profit. At $30,000, it's the amount the building can afford to borrow. So when they do an appraisal, when you go to refinance this thing on the tail end, when they do an appraisal, if they say, oh, we can give you an extra $50,000 more than you need, the question is, what are you going to do with it? Because if I just take it home and I'm paying interest on it, have I really moved myself ahead? A lot of times, sometimes you'll have something that appraises or the bank is willing to value it higher than you think it's actually worth doing for. And so you just got to be at that point a little bit cautious. So I guess, because I do need to wrap up and get to my 2 o'clock, I appreciate you moving earlier. Any questions out of what we came up with? Anything that you want me to plan to guide you on next time? I've got a plan, but anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think yeah, if I can access this recording, I'll probably just go back and kind of like watch the numbers again, and then that way if I have questions I can ask you next time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and really, I realized I didn't intend to go deep on a property. Like usually, my first one is like, oh, look at the various everything. So I'll send you that probably this afternoon. Probably, I think my daughter has a game at 4, so after 4 or after 6. And then I'll send you that, and I'll also send you the various spreadsheets, and you kind of mess around with them as well as the various formulas. And really, the formulas aren't. I mean, the spreadsheet you saw pretty much contains most of the formula you need for this purpose. And then we'll and then what I'll do when I get done with the 2, sometime this afternoon, I'll text you and we'll plan for the next meetup.
Okay.
And go from there. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.